Hello, and welcome to an intro to Anthro with two humans. I'm human number one, John McCray.
And I'm human number two, John Lehr.
And this is the podcast where we reassess what it means to be human. And the title of this episode is Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow, The Hair Story and Heresy of Hair. So John,
your titles are fantastic.
I was trying to do an homage to, like anytime you see in America, I don't know, maybe they do this all over the world, but in America where they have a hair salon, it's always a play on the word hair, like the hair. Yeah.
Yep.
Hair it is, hair ye. So I was trying to do a little tip of the hat.
It's perfect timing. I got a haircut today. So
really,
at Empire Barber Shop.
Really?
So they had nothing to do with hair, just Empire. I don't know why they're an Empire. Maybe I don't know. Anyway,
do you go there all the time, or is that?
Yeah, this is my third haircut there. So I found a guy, and
right.
Yeah.
Is it? Do you get the is it the full barber experience, or is it more like a salon?
They're all there's one woman and all men, but it's it's LA, so it's kind of metra and fluid, so there's a lot going on there. But the one thing he does at the very end, he has a hand massager that he puts on his hand and rubs my neck at the end.
I thought he was massaging your hands. He's got the
give me your hands.
A machine that does that for him.
No, it's so nice. Ugh.
Is it do you have to pay extra for that, or is that just kind of like?
No, that's like his little signature move,
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Let me ask you, is there a barber pole out front?
Yep.
Is there?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Nice.
And I've always wondered about that. And I'm hoping you're going to get into that a little bit.
We will talk about it.
Okay, good.
We will talk about it. So, but let me give you a little history or just a little background about how this topic came up for us.
Yes. Okay.
Not long ago, I happened to see on BBC, there was a short video by Isabel Rod, and it was talking about how popular the mullet is in Australia.
Yeah, apparently for decades. It's been like that for a long, long time.
Yeah, you've been to Australia, right? Do you remember seeing the mullet?
Yeah, I hosted a show called I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Yeah.
Set right in the jungles of Australia. And
did you see some mullets there?
Yes, my entire crew, the men, almost all mullets.
Yeah, that's what
it's such a weird country, because the women are all Olivia Newton-John. Like, the women of Australia are all just gorgeous. And the men are all these kind of fratty guys in mullets. Now, of course, I'm stereotyping here and painting with a broad stroke, but I'm telling you, it's noticeable.
So that's what this video was saying, is like, it's crazy how popular the mullet is. And you've just confirmed it. When right after I saw it, we had some friends who had just come back from Australia. And I asked them, I said the same thing. I go, did you see a lot of mullets over there? And their eyes lit up like, yeah, how did you know? Like, we saw it. Everybody has mullets. And
they all come from prisoner stock. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the tie-in.
It is, because, you joke about it, but it is, because that's what in the video, Elsa Weaver, who's an Australian fashion expert, is saying that love of the mullet goes back to the larrikins. And the larrikins, she says, were working class urban gangs back in the 1800s. And they were kind of rule breakers and kind of, kind of dodgy, just this side of the law. But they all cut their own hair, and they like to dress fashionably to set themselves off. And she says that today a larrikin means like a cheeky rule breaker in Australia. But she said that the mullet appeals to that history of the larrikins.
And that makes sense. because you party in the front. I mean, party in the back, business in the front. You
Right,
know, they
right.
were cheeky,
Yeah,
tricksters.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And there's a guy in the video because they're interviewing a lot of people with mullets, and he's there with his son who also has a mullet, a young kid. And he says that he feels that the mullet appeals to the rat bag in it. And I kind of feel like
What? The
the
rat bag.
rat bag's kind of like Australian slang for troublemaker, or like an
Uh-huh.
eccentric nonconformist. And I kind of feel like, being from Kansas, I could kind of identify with that. Like, I feel like I have a
Yeah.
little rat bag in me too. You know what I
Well,
mean? It's
yeah, you absolutely do. I mean, you and I both grew our hair long for many years,
right,
and
right,
you and I, I think we may have even talked about it on the podcast, but we hitchhiked together in
yeah,
Europe, but didn't get
yeah,
picked up at all, maybe once or
no,
twice, and because we looked so terrible, we were too
yeah,
cheeky. You
yeah,
had big you had big lamb chops on the side of your
yeah.
face. I've never seen a man grow a lamb chop like you did. Those were beautiful.
Remember, it was the summer that Hitcher came out. The movie
Yes.
Hitcher came out in England with Rutger Hauer,
Oh,
and so
here in my back, here, right here. There
oh,
you
you can
are.
see,
I'm pointing to you.
yeah, I got the
That
chops there.
yep, for those of you seeing us on YouTube,
Yeah,
that's John right
that's
there.
it. That's
Yep.
where it was.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry.
Yeah, but Hitcher came out, remember? And I just remember us hiking, trying to get a ride, and then seeing like on a bus that drove by, like a billboard for the movie Hitcher, saying like, "Hitcher, don't pick him up." It's like, of
And we're
course,
standing there with our backpacks on
with
in
our
the
thumbs out.
rain. Yeah. Oh God, that was horrible. That was
So
horrible.
anyway, the mullet, from what I did some reading, because once I learned about the mullet in Australia, it's like, I gotta find out about this,
Yeah, you're off and running.
Right. And the mullet has been making a comeback in America as well, with the
Ugh,
Tiger King, for example,
right?
that movie.
Jesus.
And Miley Cyrus has been seen wearing a mullet.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I have one of my daughter's friends wears a mullet. Because the
really,
mullet also has gone, it's like straight sort of white trash guys sported the mullet,
right?
and lesbians.
Yeah,
It was a classic lesbian look for many years. So which is also really interesting that those two kind of subcultures picked it up.
right, right. And actually, Linda Lacina, who's a writer, she traces it back. She's done a history of it, and she says that the mullet goes back to like ancient Greece. Like, she talks about
What?
how in Homer's Iliad, there's a description of some spearmen
Oh
who
no.
had their hair short in the front and long in the back. So, and there's
Oh, that changes
also,
everything.
I
Every
know,
Roman reenactment movie, whenever we see, we should restage Julius Caesar and make them
with
all have
mullets,
mullets. God, that's
mullets,
a
and like
genius idea.
they can also have like the sleeves torn out of their shirts or something with it as well, with their flannel shirts. But yeah, there's statues of Romans, Hittites, Assyrians, and Egyptians, all with a version of the mullet.
Mm,
In ancient Rome, there was something called the Hun cut, Hun
mm.
cut,
Oh boy!
which was like short in the front and long in the back. And it
Wow,
was worn not only by Huns, but also by fans of chariot racing. Wore the Hun
amazing.
cut. Yeah,
Well, you'd want it long in the back when you're on a chair, because you want it blowing. You want people to
right.
see you're
It'd
flying
look
through the
good.
air on your
It'd look good.
chariot. The
Yeah.
Canaanites, one of the reasons the Jews, grow the payas, grow the long
Hmm.
sideburns, is because of the Canaanites apparently shaved the sides of their head. And so
Oh,
the
so they
Jews wanted
were
to stand out against them, and they had the circumcision, but you don't see that from 100
right.
yards. You know what I mean?
Right. So
You
they
got
were like anti-mullet almost, because
right.
the
That's
Canaanites
right.
were wearing a
Yeah,
version of them.
that's right. You'll
Uh,
never see a Jew wear a mullet ever.
Benjamin Franklin wore something called a skullet,
Oh boy.
He was like bald, and then he had the long hair in the back. So they
Yes.
call that a skullet.
Yeah.
And some people say that James K. Polk, who was president back in the 1850s, they say he's the only president that's ever worn a mullet. And I went on, and there's actually like a tintype of him. And sure enough, long in the back, short in the front.
Wow. Yeah. I've got to see that. Maybe you could give that to me and we can post it.
Yeah, we'll have to put that
in the description.
Some more mullet facts. David Bowie, obviously, in his Ziggy Stardust.
And he had the spike in the front.
Right.
And the long. That's a great look.
Paul McCartney had a version of it back in the 70s.
That's true. Yeah.
And
then, of course, went off track a little bit during that period.
Kind of during the Wings period, I think he had a mullet.
They had Band on the Run, but, it wasn't his best days.
Well, the mullet was there, though. The mullet.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Billy Ray Cyrus is probably the most famous mullet wearer.
Absolutely. Enhanced. And that, sort of, was passed on genetically to what's her face?
Miley. Right.
I was calling her Siley.
Yeah. And you've already mentioned that people refer to it as business in the front, party in the back.
Yes.
But there's other terms for the mullet. There's some people call it the Kentucky waterfall.
I like that a lot. That's fantastic.
That is fantastic. The other term it's known as is the Missouri Compromise.
Oh God,
I love it.
Oh my God.
And then in Europe, apparently, it's never gone out of fashion with football players or soccer players.
Yeah,
and they call it the footballer's cut.
Right, because you want to see the hair flowing, but they've got to keep it out of their eyes. It's like the the chariot riders. Same thing.
Right. Yeah, it's all about the look. All about the look when you're out there.
God, I should have gotten my hair cut in a mullet for today's show. my daughter would have killed me.
I wish I would have to get the skullet. Maybe we should grow it out for
let's
for this.
Do it one more time. Let's grow them long one more time. What do you say?
Just for this. For an appearance. If we ever make an appearance because of this thing, we'll grow it out.
Okay, good. I like that.
The Beastie Boys in 1994 had a song called Mullet Head, which is where I think we actually get the term mullet for the hair.
Really? They were the ones.
They were the ones. And I think even the Oxford Dictionary cites them as the first use of the term mullet for that haircut.
You're kidding.
No.
The Beastie Boys. God, I want to be cited by the Oxford Dictionary, That's cool.
Throwing some stuff out in this podcast.
All right. How about this? Volop. Volop.
Volop.
Volop. That's that taste in your mouth when you wake up in the morning. Volop.
Nice. All right. We have it down. It is. Okay. It is now. We've got it. Yeah. We got it cataloged, and hopefully that will take off. That Volop.
Volop.
But they have in their song. It says, there's a chorus: mullet head, don't touch the back, cut the sides, but don't touch the back. And they use it before that mullet was kind of used. I guess a mullet's a fish, really, and a mullet was used as someone with limited intelligence. So they were kind of making fun, like the mullet head or whatever.
I see. God.
And
then
was
the mullet before that, because that's not that long ago.
I know, and I seem to remember people when we were growing up having mullets.
Absolutely.
But I don't know what I'd call them then. Just. Missouri Compromise? I know. I don't remember what we...
What did we call them?
They were there. I mean, they were...
Yeah, they existed.
So and then we get back to the mullets kind of fell out of fashion in the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
Because people, I mean, they stayed popular with like soccer players, hockey players, but people were just kind of like, hey, that's kind of, like you said, a little like, people started thinking it was a little tacky.
Yeah. Well, there was grunge happening during that time, where it was like you didn't want to pay attention to anything. It was just, it's too much work, too precious,
right?
To keep yourself trimmed up like that.
And but some people continue to wear it. They said just because they were conscious of what it represented. Which one guy I read about, he said it was like a middle finger to social norms, which I appreciate that. Like it's your hair, man. Do whatever you want with your
whatever
hair.
you want. You know? It's a free country. Just don't hurt me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so as I was reading all this mullet stuff, John, I became fascinated by hair and what hair represents and how powerful hair is in terms of like religious, cultural, psychological, and political symbolism. And
well, it's so interesting because we're these hairless creatures for the most part.
Right.
And then we've got this shock of hair growing out the top of our head. It's the most bizarre thing. I mean, I recognize that we have hair in other places, but that hair doesn't need to be trimmed.
Right.
Really? It's the beard and the head. What's up with that? Although I'll tell you, my barber, he shaved off an ear hair. I couldn't believe it. He was like, I said, could you hit the ears? Because, sometimes a hair will grow out your ears. You get older. I couldn't believe it. Was like 4 inches long. I've been walking around with that thing flapping around. Nobody told me. I'm so upset with all my friends.
Yeah,
except for
people
you.
have to. People have to do that or a nose hair. A nose hair, too.
Tell me.
Yeah. A good friend says something about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll be doing a play or something.
Yep.
And the light will hit that thing.
Yeah.
It will light up like a neon, like a fluorescent light bulb. And that's all people will see in your show.
Right. That hair is now cursive for saying you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Look at the idiot.
Believe me, the reviewers are going to see that. I wish I could have had something to say about John Lehr's performance, but
oh boy,
I was too distracted by the light show coming out of his ear.
Oh, you're reminding me of the New York Times review of our show. Jesus.
Listen, you haven't lived till you've been panned by the New York Times. That's all I can say.
That is true.
Not many people can say that. So.
That's true.
Just a local rag. That local rag. Nobody reads it outside anyway.
But they gave a rave to 10 Items or Less, my first show.
Did they really?
On TV. Yeah.
So trying to make it up to you.
Comes and goes.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about hair. Obviously, we've been talking about hair. But let's just go ahead. Let's get the facts out of the way.
Good.
All right. So hair is 10% water, 90% proteins called keratin. Which anybody that goes shopping for shampoo knows the term keratin now.
Mm-hmm.
Each hair grows from a follicle that has a sebaceous or oil-producing gland.
Okay, we know that.
Humans have 100 to 150,000 follicles.
Jesus, my God! Yeah. In a weird way, though, that's not as many as I would think. Right. I guess so. I'm kind of trying to picture it. That's all we got, 150,000? Well, I guess that's a lot.
It seems like you could do it like, what's it? You try to guess how many beans are in a jar or something. Maybe we could try to count your hair follicles and see how many hairs you have up there. That could be a contest to win a T-shirt off this podcast.
Okay. Done.
The average lifespan of a hair is 4 to 7 years.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what happens? Another follicle? You just lose that follicle.
You lose that hair, and then I guess another follicle grow. I don't know. I should have double checked on that, but I thought it was interesting that they last 4 to 7 years.
Yeah, that's weird.
They grow each hair grows 1/2 inch per month.
Oh, I know that.
And only humans and muskox have hair that continuously grow. So
you're kidding me. That's the only two?
That's the only two. Other animals they grow hair, but for continuous growth.
What the hell?
Humans and muskox. So
muskox? What is the muskox need it for?
Don't know.
Why do we do this? It's so bizarre. Yeah. When you really think about it, it's just this weird thing. But you say the 1/2 inch per month, but don't you think some people, it seems to me, like I know this guy, and he knows who he is if he's listening to this. His hair grows so fast. Really? I mean, it's like I keep saying to him, like, you should be able to make money off this somehow.
Yeah, you could sell it for wigs or something. Like
something.
That. Yeah,
it's passive income.
You're just as you're sleeping. Yeah. As you're sleeping, you're making money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose that's an average, half inch
right.
per.
So some more, some less.
Yeah. As you mentioned already, humans have lost most of their hair on their body through evolution, but they retained it on their heads.
What the hell?
And what they found also is that, our sweat glands increased as we lost our hair.
Yes.
So loss of hair may have had something to do with keeping the body cool, because with a bigger brain, you want to have you got to keep that brain cool. Mm-hmm. So they think maybe it was a way we lost the hair to help regulate our body temperature.
Right.
And also with less hair, you had less to worry about parasites, because that would have been a problem, because parasites love to get in there with the hair.
My poor doggy got to come, because I'm in LA, so it's year round. You got to keep on that flea stuff, or they'll. Poor dog.
And another thing people say is, and again, we come back to this. We talked about this a little bit last week about visibility of the sex organs. Like, some people think that, like, the loss of hair was to make the sex organs more visible.
Anthropologists are all about the sex. Everything is about the sex organ.
I know. Listen, I'm just quoting these aren't my hypotheses.
I apologize. I don't mean to jump on the messenger, but Jesus, that comes up a lot. It's all about. So women really are attracted to a larger penis.
I don't know. I mean, we're visible, but again, it's not like, a flasher or something like that. But it's from an evolutionary standpoint, maybe.
It does make sense, because all the kids are all shaving everything down there.
Yeah.
The kids do it, and it just gives it more of a. They claim, more of a better look.
Contrast, more of a contrast.
Yes.
Yes,
we're hidden in deep foliage.
I know.
Nobody knows where it is.
I had a professor who I used to TA for him for physical anthropology. And he would always bring this up whenever we get to, like, hair. And he'd always talk about, like, as we evolved, we've lost our hair. And then he'd always point at me and go, look at Mr. McCray. Look at Mr. McCray. He's at a state of advanced evolution.
Well, that is true. The reason you've lost your hair is because you've got too much going on inside there. It's heating up. Yeah.
I don't know.
Too many thoughts.
I think it's genetic.
Well, it is genetic. I mean, all you guys, every McCray man looks pretty much the same.
My dad said he was the only bald 7th grade class president his school ever had.
My God, that's so.
Very funny.
Yeah,
bald at a young age.
You guys all have the same head, and you all have the same balding pattern. All of you. Yeah.
Like Charlie Brown. Like Charlie Brown. So hair is a cultural, the cultural and social significance of hair, they think goes back maybe even like 30,000 years. Wow. Because they have the Venus of Willendorf, which is a small figurine of a woman. And they think that's from 25 to 30,000 years ago. And what's interesting is that her hair is actually, there's hair styling on the Venus of Willendorf.
Wow.
So this is going back even, like I say, 30,000 years ago.
Well, it makes sense because, you got to do something with it. So ponytails and things like that. And then like braiding. Can you imagine the person who figured out the braid? Man, that must have been huge.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Just sitting around the fire doing each other's hair.
Mm-hmm.
So. Hair also, there were also attributes of hair that seem to have impressed some ancient people. So hair was a symbol of renewal and regeneration because you could cut it off and it would grow back.
Okay.
A full head of hair was a symbol of fertility.
But
Uh,
okay, for fertility for women,
yeah.
but virility, isn't it the opposite? I mean, I've always heard that men who lose their hair is because they have so much testosterone
I
that
don't know.
somehow that's connected.
I think that would have to be culturally from just recent, I think. Uh,
Really? Yeah.
because didn't they have like the bald is beautiful movement back in the 60s or something where
Telly
bald men.
Savalas,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
come rub me, baby,
yeah.
with
I
the
think
popsicle.
Caesar. Yeah, Julius Caesar was embarrassed about his balding hair. So I don't know
Ah.
if it was really such a thing as, it wasn't until recently that
Mm,
bald guys suddenly realize, hey, let's make this into a positive, like
yeah.
it's virility at that point. Uh, Also, people thought that because the hair was closest, it was, grew out of the top of your head, it
Hmm.
was closest to the divine. So it became like
Oh
it
boy.
was
Here we
the,
go.
the,
Jacob's ladder, basically, right? You're
the
supposed to
source of
grow
spiritual power. Yeah.
grow scaffolding so you can climb your own hair up into heaven.
Yeah, exactly. And some people thought, well, if an enemy got a hold of your hair, they could do damage to you. They could like use that
Right.
hair to try to do something to you.
Well, yeah, we see that in football. Those guys who have those long
What?
braids or long hair, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're always like, oh God, we've got that punter for the Chiefs with the
Oh yeah,
long
yeah.
locks.
Oh,
And I'm all,
anytime they tackle somebody by the hair, you're like, why are you wearing your hair so long?
yeah, exactly. Why give them
Yeah.
more surface area?
Hairstyles could also reflect your age, your gender, your economic and social rank.
Mm-hmm.
Long hair became a symbol of sexuality, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Again, kind of like on Bryer, your short hair was more, constrained and controlled. Long hair was more like you're letting your sexuality go.
Well,
And
Mary has long hair.
she
Do
does,
you
and I
like?
have no hair.
And you
I
have no
have
hair.
no hair.
Does she? Do you prefer her with long hair, or what do you prefer?
I've never seen her with short hair.
Yeah, me neither.
But I would, to me, it's I don't know. I
She
don't care
has
what.
very nice hair, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
she
you don't
does
want
have
her
beautiful
going to
hair.
cut. I mean, if she said, first of all, when a woman, historically at least, when a woman cut her hair off, it usually meant something.
Right,
Like that's a
right.
serious move to cut your hair off.
Yeah, I think everybody has to choose their own hairstyle. Myself, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a very
Mm-hmm.
personal space. But
Yeah.
I was at a show opening, an art opening last weekend, and someone was a friend of my friend who was exhibiting there, and she was saying how she had just cut all of her hair off, and she was saying I felt like myself again, as I guess she had let it grow for a while, and she had really
Mm.
short hair, and she was saying as I was cutting it off, I felt like myself. And so I think it's all what
Hmm.
people themselves feel like for their hair.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But we all grew it long for the pandemic. Everybody had long
Yeah,
hair.
yeah. Um, the other thing, hair can last forever. If you seal up hair in a tomb, for example, that hair
Really?
will stay there for a long
What?
time. It really lasts a long time. And
Weird.
yeah, and I could say, because I've looked at, I've studied skulls and skeletal collections and things, and I have
Mm-hmm.
to admit there's nothing. I mean, there's always like some solemnity to when you're looking at a skull, that this was a human
Mm.
being that you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at right now. But but also, if you see hair in that
Mm.
collection box, or if you see hair still attached to the skull, there's nothing that brings it home more of like this was a living
Mm-hmm.
human being than seeing
Mm-hmm.
hair in there. Because
Yeah.
it will last forever if it's, not exposed to the elements.
Hair and honey. Doesn't honey last forever too? I don't know. I
Yeah,
thought they
I
found some
think.
honey in tombs. Weird.
Yeah,
Weird. Of all the things to last forever.
I know. And the hair too. Just one last thing about the facts of it is, it stores all of our genetic information. So it's like a
But
little. Go ahead.
but don't you need to get the follicle? or can you just use the hair itself? I
It's
always thought I've read some mystery novels where the follicle was important. I don't know. We'll have to look into that.
I'll have to.
But it is interesting that it does. And drug testing, like they use certain drug testing. Like I think for LSD, you can test the hair for, which is
isn't
pretty
that amazing? Yeah. That it's all in there. It's like a record of our lives.
When you take acid, it should go right into your hair. It's the craziest thing ever.
In ancient Egypt, the pharaohs and the wealthy class would shave their heads and wear wigs, for example, to keep cool because it was so hot there.
Oh, interesting. So that makes sense because Yul Brynner played what's his face and
so Moses. They would remove all of their eyebrows and eyelash, all the body hair, and again, probably because of parasites, but also to keep cool.
Ooh, the eyebrows?
The eyebrows too. Yeah.
My daughter's friends are shaving and bleaching their eyebrows, and it is so weird. When you see somebody and then they bleach them, it's so bizarre.
Yeah.
They look like aliens or something. They love it.
Yeah. Who was that on Star Trek, Deep Space Nine? Odo or whatever. Or something. He had that.
Yes. Yeah.
Renee Aubergenois had no eyebrows.
No eyebrows. Yep.
Yeah. That looks weird. In ancient Greece, people in mourning would shave their heads and hang a lock of the dead person's hair on their door frame So again, just kind of as a
just to honor them.
Person. Yeah,
it's interesting. I want you to do that with me. Would you do that?
I will. Yeah, I'll put it out there.
I'll mail you some hair now, just so you have it. Please. And then you could just tape it up there when I die.
Yeah, give me some extra though, because I got a lot. I want to put some out by the garage and put some out back as well.
Okay,
out on the shed.
I'll send you a bunch.
Yeah, send me next time you go to Empire. Just say, hey, can you sweep that up? I got a friend in Albuquerque.
I get a lot of compliments on my hair from young people.
Really?
Yeah, people in their 20s love my hair. They're like, it's so cool because it's silver. Yeah, they just think it's the coolest thing.
Is that your natural color? Have you ever thought about bleaching it, or are you?
No, I had to dye it for some things for acting, but I hated that. Yeah. I hope to never do that again, but I'll do it if it pays. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to stand on principle.
Like, your hair is really hung on, though, is what's amazing to me.
I know. Well, I use the Propecia, the Rogaine, spray it in my head. My wife told me early in our relationship, I started to lose some hair, and she was like, no, absolutely not. She was like, I'm not, no. Yeah, because I didn't bald like you. You have a nice balding pattern, but mine was you saw my dad. It was not pretty. Yeah. It was the thin thing that would,
Yeah. That's right. Your father was bald. Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Barbering goes back 6,000 years, by the way. And many barbers were also spiritual leaders. Because some cultures believe that the good and bad spirits entered and exited the body through the hair.
Well, and it's such an intimate relationship. Like everybody, you're making yourself vulnerable to somebody when you let them cut your hair. You know what I mean? It's like, and you don't really know how it's done. It's like when you take your car in to get worked on, you just got to trust the mechanic's going to fix it. And same with the barbers. Like, just don't make me look like an idiot.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
What's the worst haircut you've ever had?
Oh,
do you think?
I had my hair long, and I had a girlfriend who asked if she could trim it. It was way too long, and she trimmed it. And then somebody called, and she was on the phone while she was cutting me and was crying, was upset, and kept. And I ended up with the what's it called? The Prince Valiant. I had the Prince Valiant.
No. You gotta get up. If somebody's crying when they're cutting your hair, you gotta get up and walk away.
I wanted to, but I was inebriated, and I was, I didn't have my faculties.
Yeah. The worst
there was
one
a whole lot going on during that.
The worst one I had was when I first moved out here to New Mexico, and I went in, and the guy kind of had a sign outside of his house, and I was walking by, and I was like, okay, I'll go in there. I just need to get my hair cut. And I go in, and as he's cutting my old guy, it's like but he had a barber chair in his living room, which was interesting.
Weird.
And as he's cutting my, he asked me what I want, and I said, oh, just kind of trim it a little bit. And then as I'm talking to him, I realize he can't hear anymore. He's like, he's hard of hearing. So no matter what I told him, and he's just hacking away on that thing. And when I came, it was probably the worst haircut I've ever had.
What did it look like?
It was it was uneven. Nothing like, it took it really short, uneven, because he was kind of shaking. And nothing like what I had said, like just a little, just kind of shape it up. It's like, okay. And he hadn't heard anything. Even as as I'm talking to him, he's thanking him, I realize he can't hear me at all. So.
Well, you gotta wonder about somebody signing their house. I mean, I don't know. I would have advised against it.
I thought it was like artisanal or something.
Right. Like, I can see the appeal to you. Yeah. Absolutely, I can see it.
Go in there like a handcrafted haircut, and then it was like, as I'm... I realize he's not responding to any of the small talk.
You're probably the first haircut he had in like 15 years.
Oh, yeah. He's like, let me look in the kitchen and see what I have.
I still got the chair because I can't get it out.
But in ancient Rome, the hair of the first shave that a young man had, they would save those hairs and dedicate them to the gods.
Oh,
so you would kind of collect that and be...
Okay. Yeah, the first haircut for my kids was important. I remember that.
Was it?
That was
Did you save that hair? Did you?
No, but I just remember the moments,
Yeah. A lot of Bible stories about haircuts. Of course, Samson.
Yeah.
Yeah. St. Paul wrote in the New Testament, he said, "Doth not nature teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him? But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her." So he was already setting it up.
Yeah. This is my problem with the New Testament. The gospel's fantastic, but when you get to the epistles, those guys are just saying stuff.
Just salesmen.
That's not from Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like, he just liked shorter hair on men and longer hair on women.
Right. And it was also the Romans liked shorter hair. So I think he was kind of more a Roman from Roman culture.
Interesting.
Well. Mm-hmm. What is interesting, though, is Mary Magdalene in the New Testament uses her hair to wash Jesus' feet. And that's
that's right.
Important because respectable Jewish women at the time would always have their hair covered. Mm-hmm. And because she was a prostitute, the fact that she was using her hair to wash Jesus' feet was just kind of subtle symbolism at the time to kind of show how she was of a different class
from Jesus was open to all walks of life. But wasn't washing the feet then putting oil? Wasn't it oil that she was putting? So her hair, dipping it in the oil. It's like, it's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot going on there, Mary.
Yeah.
I mean, and pieces of the hair sticking to his feet, the hair, the feet, the oil. It's just too much.
I don't know. Yeah. Don't knock it till you try it.
That's true. That's true. So you've tried it, Mary? Your Mary is
no, she won't do it at all. She won't do it at all.
I'll do it. You know what? When I send you my hair, you can dip it in oil and wipe it on your feet. Feel free.
I take my socks off, and it's like, oh no, you're not doing that. I'm like, come on, I got the oil out. Oh no, you don't. And a lot of religious groups still have traditions that go along with hair. For example, Sikhs do not cut their hair. Muslim men grow beards, or some Muslim men, they grow their beards and remove their body hair.
Interesting.
Like you mentioned already, Orthodox Jewish men, they grow the payas.
Yep.
And wear beards. And Orthodox Jewish women have their hair cut when they marry and wear a sheitel.
Yep.
Or a wig, right?
Yep. You can't. That's Orthodox or Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Amish men grow a beard when they get married. And of course, Rastafarians grow dreadlocks to signify unholy people's fear of the dreadful power of the holy. So that's
Oh,
the reason
interesting.
for
I
it.
didn't realize that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dreadlock.
Yeah, that's
Interesting.
where it comes from. So it's to symbolize that they're holy and showing like the fear that other people have for being unholy.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then also, just recently, in Iran, there's been a lot of protests because of the death of Masha Amini, who
Yeah.
she was arrested by the morality police for having an improper head cover.
Yeah.
And women around the world have been not only uncovering their hair, but also cutting their hair
Mm-hmm.
in,
In solidarity.
in
Yeah.
solidarity and as a protest.
Yeah. Amazing.
And hair, apparently in the Islamic Republic, hair is a sign of beauty that must be covered. And I was reading one journalist in Iran had said that throughout Iranian history, when women haven't had enough power to stand up, they have cut their hair. And so again, it's like
Interesting.
a very powerful symbol of protest in Iran.
Interesting. It's like you're
Yeah,
not going to enjoy this thing that you enjoy. It's mine, and it's
right,
reclaiming that. I love
right.
that.
Yeah,
Love
me
that.
too. In the Middle Ages, though, Christians also felt that their hair could lead to temptation. So during the Middle Ages, hairstyles became much more modest than what they had been
Ugh, the
before.
Middle Ages. Oh, Jesus.
And
It was
only
a
hair on
rough
the.
time all around.
I know.
Everything. God, what a nightmare.
Not only the disease and everything, but it wasn't any fun.
Ugh.
It was like
Nothing
no
was
fun.
fun. Nothing.
No, no. And women would actually pluck their hairline to get the high forehead look at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
And you see that being borrowed for the movie Dune. And I'm
Oh,
talking the
really?
original one. Yeah. Where
Really?
they would pluck the hair back to have that big long high. That is an odd look, man. That is a freaky look, freaky deek
Yeah.
look.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, what they would do is unmarried girls would wear their hair down, whereas once they were married, they had to put their hair up. So that's what you
Mm-hmm.
see a lot of the paintings from the Middle Ages. They always have their hair covered.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
in the 1160s, barbers started bloodletting as well, which I think a
Right.
lot of people know about. So
weird. And most of us, our generation knows about it from Saturday Night Live because Steve Martin played a barber who would put leeches on people or bloodlet them. Yeah.
They were called doctors of the short robe, and they would do they would do like dental surgery and also like some minor surgery on people as well. So and
interesting.
That's what they say. The barber pole, that red and white, is supposed to symbolize the clean bandages and the bloody bandages of back when they were surgeons. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
So they'd wrap it on a pole out there, wrap clean and red, and people could see where they were. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Queen Elizabeth I was supposed to have had 80 red wigs that she she would like switch out. And what's interesting is Mary, Queen of Scots, when she was beheaded, one of the accounts talks about her wig falling off when her head when her head came off.
Oh, well, that'll happen. You chop a head off, and it's hard to keep the wig on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would have, if you could have had somebody, I would have been like, it's okay if I hang on to it or something, or like,
yeah. Or have your maid or whatever, one of your ladies in waiting, glue it to your head. It's not like you're going to be taking it off.
Right.
Right. Just glue on today. Let's just glue it.
But yeah, they talk about how people hadn't seen her without her wig in so long, and then that's when it happened. They realized she had short hair.
Jesus.
In the 1600s, Louis XIII in France was going bald and started wearing wigs. So all of the other nobility started wearing wigs to kind of like kiss up to him or whatever. And that's kind of how we got this whole idea of wearing wigs. That's where the fashion kind of came, and the wigs got so big, like they would have to raise the doorways because of that fashion of people wearing these huge wigs.
Oh my
And
god!
on
And that's
top of it, people.
mainly in France, right? We're talking France at this point, mainly.
Well, and it went to England as well. Like the
Oh
English started wearing those
man!
powdered white wigs, you know.
Oh, why did they powder them? Was it just because they got dirty and the powder would make them look white and clean, maybe?
Maybe. I mean,
And
people would use
smell. I'm sure
powder
the
or
smell.
flour, and sometimes they talk about one of the things that used to also during the French Revolution, people got really upset that they were using the nobility were still powdering their wigs with flour
When the
when the
poor were
people were
starving.
right, exactly.
Yeah, that's a bad move. That's a good way to get your head chopped off by a guillotine.
Yeah,
Is be
exactly.
powdering your wig with flour when people are starving. That's a
They
good thing for the rich in this country to
yeah.
history is a good thing to know. There's a lot of lessons to learn, when
They
you're flying in your private jets and whatnot.
yeah,
You
just
know.
watch your wigs. Watch
Yeah,
your wigs.
watch your
Don't be
wigs.
flamboyant with your wigs.
It doesn't take much to build a guillotine.
They said some people had the wigs got so heavy that they would have sores on their heads from wearing
Oh
these
my
wigs were so
god.
big.
You ever had to
And
wear a wig? You ever wear one? I've worn a few wigs.
just for
And it
fun. Just
oh
for fun, not for
when the Geico caveman had to wear a wig, and it's uncomfortable. You're like
yeah.
pinning it to you, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very claustrophobic,
Did
I
you
find.
did you ever have to wear a wig for any other shows or anything or
Yeah, oh yeah, I've worn a few. Yeah, I went under one of my characters went undercover as a woman once, and
yeah.
I had to have the character I was playing was then pretending to be a woman, which was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had lots of wigs put on me, and I don't like it. I don't like it at
Really?
all. Mm-mm.
Hot? Was it hot when you were
Hot,
on
yeah,
the
and
set? Yeah.
uncomfortable, and yeah, I just take it off.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, in 1951, psychoanalyst Charles Berg wrote an article called "The Unconscious Significance of Hair," and he
Hmm.
kind of took a Freudian view of hair and wrote that head hair is a symbol of the genitals,
Oh
and
boy.
therefore cutting hair and shaving are symbols of castration.
Oh
so, like,
man.
so
Those
what?
Freudians.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, look, a lot of it is. I just got back from Austria not long ago, so
yeah.
I've got Freud on the brain, if you know what I mean.
Is he
But
like he's like their guy, right? I
oh
mean,
yeah, I mean yeah,
t-shirts and
yeah.
like
It ain't the other famous person from that country, that's for sure.
do they do you have like
Yeah.
Freud impersonate kind of like going outside the Grauman's or something like it's a bunch of Freud impersonators standing
Yeah.
out there
Pushing their couches on roller chair on rolling ball, you know.
just to have photos taken.
Yeah. They
Anthony Anthony Synott is another sociologist who talks about the theory of opposites in hair, and he talks about how now we have like opposite sexes have opposite hair. So for men, it's body hair is good, like a hairy
Mhm.
chest or something. But for
Yeah.
women, you don't want to have any body hair.
Mhm.
And they
I know
also
you
talks
you
about
have a hairy back. I mean, hairy. It's like a carpet back there.
yeah, yeah. I refuse to get it shaved. That's me. All right, it's my personal space. So, uh,
Mhm.
and then he talks about how opposite ideologies, political ideologies, had opposite hair. That's part of his.
Sure. The hippies.
So the hippies grew it long because their
Mhm.
fathers had it short.
Right.
Then the skinheads hated the hippies, so then the
Yeah.
skinheads shaved off their hair.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the punks had it kind of like a personal, just kind of like personal expression. Do whatever you
And
want with your
and
hair.
always in the punk rock, it was like a weapon too, like the
Yeah,
spikes and it was like yeah, it was
yeah.
that was a good time for hair, man, when you'd see somebody rocking like a 2 foot long mohawk sticking out the top. That was always great.
Oh yeah. I actually feel more comfortable when I see people now with a mohawk.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's kind of what I kind of grew up around,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like when I see that, I'm like, okay, I can identify with that. It's like it's
Right.
not, you know.
But some styles get absorbed. For example, like I was a metalhead in middle
Yeah.
school where you grew your hair long, and then as it morphed into the 80s where it was hair bands, where they were metal but they had their hair like
Yeah. Yeah.
oh yeah, oh my, Bon Jovi, the example,
Right. Right.
handsome, good looking, wavy hair. It was amazing. It kind of took it away.
You know, one of the essays I read getting ready for this episode was an essay by Jason Payne called "Hair and Makeup," and he talks about how hair would push different music uh, genres in different ways, or kind of take them, but kind of take control of the music genres. So he talks about Vince Neil's blonde California metal hair.
Yes, yeah.
Remember where it was like really teased out with his hair?
Yes. That was
And the
like
idea,
a hairband, the classic
right?
hairband.
And his idea was that was to kind of seize control of heavy metal away from England,
Yes.
where it was just long. And so he was going to tease it out to where this is like a glamorous kind of hairband.
Yeah.
And then he talks about Axl Rose and Guns N' Roses. Remember, they wanted to be a little bit more raw.
Yes.
So Axl Rose's hair was kind of like greasy and just kind of straight. And he wore the bandana, you know.
Guns N' Roses saved my life in the 80s. There was no good rock. This is pre-grunge. There was no good rock. And when that first Guns N' Roses came out, I know exactly where I was. I think you were there. In the Triangle bar in you were there, and I remember hearing it and I was like, oh, thank God that rock and roll is still here.
Welcome to the Jungle. That was like that video, everything. They would play that all the time with them.
Thank God.
Yeah.
And then we had the salad days of grunge, and then it was like on. Thank God. Yeah. It all went away. Although the kids are back. My daughter had a party here, 4 bands at our house. It was a fundraiser for an orphanage. And in India, she's on the board of this thing. And so they had 4 bands. All of them were playing like punk, hard, rock. Amazing.
That's
great.
The
kids were headbanging. And there was like a mosh pit.
Wow. Did you get out there? Did you get involved?
My daughter didn't want me around, but I came down.
Get out there and mosh?
No, I didn't mosh, but I got up close to a speaker just so I could get my bell rung,
Be horrible to be out there moshing with somebody's dad, wouldn't it? Just be awful.
The look of horror on my daughter's face when she saw me out there, I just was like, I hung my head and did the walk of shame back up into the house.
Just standing right in front of the speaker, just like,
she was like, what are you doing here? You're ruining everything.
Shaving, we got to talk about shaving the head. We kind of came to it, but shaving the head is obviously can be a symbol of renouncing your prior identity in the world. For example, like a monk, a Buddhist monk shave their heads when they go into the monasteries. Going into the army, for example, they will shave your head. Convicts will have their head shaved. And it's also, shaving the head was a way to shame collaborators. For example, in France, after World War II, women who had relationships with German soldiers would have their head shaved.
Interesting.
It's just a way of taking away your identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, in the Holocaust, they shaved all of their heads.
Right.
Too.
Once you would go into like a concentration camp, they would take away your identity by shaving your head. And I think also I read something where during the Irish Civil War, like the IRA would do that too for women who had relationships with British soldiers. So it's not just, different cultures would do that to shame people.
You ever shave your head?
No, I've always been afraid that it would never grow back.
Yeah.
I'm always like, there's a fear that I have that there's not much left up there anyway. You know
Yeah,
what I
don't go
mean?
messing around. Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
Right. Just be like,
I never have
just,
either.
yeah.
No, no
Mohawk. Did you
interest.
ever have a mohawk or anything? Or did you?
No, I just hate shaving in general. I just hate the
Yeah.
way the skin feels after I shave. I hate
Right.
shaving. I hate it.
Yeah. You always had, your hair was, I mean, it was long. Your hair was really long at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I had it really long for a long time.
Yeah. What when you did Jesse, did hair and makeup have to come do your hair for that?
Yeah.
Or did they?
Oh yeah, they
Really?
would do something to it. Yeah. They would make it
Nice.
look shiny and stuff.
Wow.
The ladies love the long hair. Well, that's why you grew yours out, right?
Yeah,
We all
of course.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Of
like
course.
the ladies seem to like it. Bad boy.
Yeah, beautiful hair. Speaking of I mean, the bob became kind of fashionable in the 20s for women.
Yeah.
Kind of like where
the flappers.
Yeah, because it was before that in like the 1800s, women had to spend so much time having their hair done. It was freeing to not have to have your hair cut it short. You know what I mean? You could just go and kind of take care of it yourself. So it became kind of a political statement as well, the bob.
I would have loved to have been around during the flapper day, during the 20s. That I think that would be a cool time to check out.
Yeah. Yeah. Great Gatsby. Did you see one of the guys hanging out at Jay Gatsby's house?
It seemed like everybody was just partying, and I don't
know. So just quickly about facial hair in America. When the Puritans and the Pilgrims first came over, a lot of men had beards at that time. And then in the early 1700s, they kind of went out of fashion. And you see where, like, if you look at paintings of the American founding fathers,
right,
none of them have facial hair at all. Because, and they say that no signer of the Declaration of Independence had any facial hair.
What?
Because it was out of fashion. Yeah.
Huh.
And then there was an interesting story about in 1830 in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, there was a guy named Joseph Palmer who had a really big beard. And
I know guys like that. I know guys like that.
It's like a ZZ Top sort of beard. And he moved to Fitchburg, and everybody hated his beard. The whole town. They would like throw rocks at him. They would call him names.
What?
They refused to give him communion at his church. They threw rocks through his windows. And then one day, 4 guys grabbed him
and shaved him.
Tried to shave off his beard.
Oh,
and he
my
fought
God.
back. He fought back and stabbed one of them in the leg.
Jesus.
And kept his beard. But then he was arrested. Palmer was arrested for unprovoked assault. And so they threw him in jail. Yeah.
And then
they threw Palmer in jail. And the jailer came in and the sheriff came in and tried to like shave his beard, and he fought back again.
Good.
So
at this point,
Palmer, I know.
Yeah. There's no turning back. If you stabbed a guy over your beard, you got to take it all the way home.
I know. I know. So Palmer stayed in jail for over a year because he wouldn't shave his beard, and he started smuggling out letters whenever his son would come visit him. And he became like a martyr for like freedom in America because he refused to shave his beard. And eventually they were like, okay, why don't you just go on home? And he was like, no, you guys carried me in. You're going to carry me out of here. And so Palmer actually made that after a year in jail for not shaving his beard, still having his beard, he made them carry him out of the jail. Yeah.
It's a great story, but I got a feeling that Palmer was a total douche. Don't you think?
I don't know.
I stand with him. But my God.
Yeah.
Okay. We're free. You're free.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll grow back, you know what I mean? But I don't know. Just like the whole thing. And he's kind of like with the Alcotts. He got involved with Bronson Alcott, who like Louisa May Alcott's brother, I think it was. They started like a commune in Massachusetts, and he actually Palmer joined that commune, and ended up when it went belly up, he bought the land and kept farming it or whatever.
Yeah.
But I
All
guess
right.
on his gravestone, if you're ever in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and on his gravestone, there's a picture of him or like a carving of him with his beard, and it says "persecuted for having a beard." So
Oh
he's
my
become,
god, that's
yeah,
amazing. I want that t-shirt, a t-shirt of that.
yeah.
That's a cool symbol. I
It's a
like that.
fascinating story. And then within his lifetime, then the Civil War comes around like 20 years later, and everybody's growing beards. Everybody, you
Right.
look at the Civil War, everything's crazy with that.
Everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Crazyville at that point.
And that lasted for another probably 40 years. And then in the early 1900s, it changes again. The style changes.
Hmm.
And people started going back to clean shaven. Clean shaven men were seen as more trustworthy in
Interesting.
the early 1900s. And mustaches were seen as a sign of willful independence, like you're hanging on to that mustache or whatever. And it was a big deal in 1915 when the Los Angeles Police Department stopped promoting detectives who had mustaches. Like they were
Well,
trying to force people to shave their mustaches.
but cops have always had mustaches, right? Cops and firemen.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
come back,
LA,
but
yeah.
in the early 1900s, they were trying to get away from that because they thought that was kind
Interesting.
of passe, and they didn't want you weren't seen as trustworthy having a
It is creepy
mustache.
that cops all have mustaches. I gotta say, it's a
Yeah,
little weird.
like that's the only thing you know.
I don't know.
I always liked it in like Holland or Amsterdam or where the cops had really long hair and everything. It just kind of like put you at ease.
They've got a different culture
Mm,
towards police over there.
yeah. So just to kind of before we sum up, I just want to talk a little bit about African American hair. And it seems like every few months, there's always a news article about somebody. Usually it's like a teacher or a referee, usually white, who
Mm-hmm.
makes some comment or makes an African American student get their hair cut or something, or tries to cut an
Hmm.
African American student's hair. And first of all, I just want to say, it's like I'm an old white guy. So it's like I'm
Me
not trying to
too.
say I understand the experience of a person of color in this country. However, I feel like it's important to try to understand that experience. And there's a lot of good books and a lot of articles have been written about the history of African American hair, about the culture of African American hair.
Mm.
One that's really good is a book called Hair Story: Untangling the Roots of Black Hair in America by Ayana Byrd and Lori Tharps.
Always with
Um,
the untangling. Anytime you're
yeah,
dealing with hair, you got to
yeah,
throw something in there.
Untangling. Yeah.
Untangling.
So, just briefly, so in the 1500s and 1600s, when Western Europeans first began interacting with people in West Africa and South Africa, they encountered a lot of different hairstyles. And that's because in African culture, a person's hair could tell a lot about somebody. It would tell
Hmm.
what clan you came from, what tribe you came from, what geographic location. Perhaps it symbolized what your marital status was.
Wow.
Your hair could also say, what possible religion you were.
Hmm.
Um, and so a lot of African cultures put a lot of spiritual power into the hair.
Hmm.
And so when the slave trade began and people were abducted and sold into slavery, one of the first things the slave traders would do would be to shave off the hair,
Hmm.
because not only was it, again, for parasites,
Dehumanizing and
yeah,
parasites,
but
but to dehumanize too.
dehumanize you, because if all
Mm-hmm.
of your personal identity was like in your hair, representing who
Mm-hmm.
you were in your hair, to
Yeah.
take that off, you were just suddenly, not to mention if you had a spiritual power going through your hair, you were
Mm-hmm.
cut off from your what you consider to be the divine, you were cut off from your culture, you were cut off from who you were, your personal identity.
Which must have been similar for Jews in the concentration camps to
Right.
have their payas shaved off. It must be in the same
Yeah.
realm.
Yeah. It's your identity, and it's taken away
Mm-hmm.
from you with the hair.
Mm-hmm.
And this process of dehumanization, I think, also continued through the slavery period in this country, because it's interesting. I read a lot of articles that were in newspapers about people looking for slave owners who were looking for people who had escaped from slavery. And they always referred to, in the description of the person, they would refer to the person's wool, WOOL,
Wow.
rather than hair.
Wow.
And again, it was like an animal. Like white people have hair, African American people had wool. And then also, shaving the head was a form of punishment that that slave owners would also do on the people that they had enslaved. And again, trying to reinforce that hierarchy between the two cultures. And the other thing that was reinforced was that white European beauty myth. So it was like fine features, light skin, blue eyes, straight hair was seen as good, whereas anything else was seen as bad. And in this country, you know, that was even extended to people of Mediterranean ancestry. So even like Jewish beauty was seen as kind of like, oh, that's not as good. You have to be good. You have to be like blonde hair, blue eyed, light skin, straight hair.
Which, of course, still runs deep in our culture. Deep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting is, you know, when Cher became very popular in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, a lot of people who weren't blonde hair, blue eyed, with fine, you know, pale skin, really loved Cher because of the fact that like she was somebody who represented how they looked rather than what you know, what the dominant culture was saying the beauty myth was.
The Kardashians tap into that a little bit too.
Right, exactly. So, you know, for African Americans, and again, this is just my take on for African Americans, you were caught in this kind of, you know, conundrum of culturally of like being told that, you know, you had to feel bad about who you were and about how you looked. And if you tried to assimilate and tried to straighten your hair, then even the predominant culture would even make fun of you at that point, or try to ridicule at that point, where we have like the minstrel shows or Amos and Andy or something trying to make fun of African Americans for trying to assimilate. So you could never really, you know, fit in.
Right.
And then it wasn't until like the 60s when people, African Americans, started saying, hey, you know, this is who I am. This is what I look like. I'm just going to let my hair grow out. And it became like a really political statement.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, you know, I completely understand that. Like I completely can understand the process behind that. I'm not African American. I'm not trying to say that I understand what people have been through, but I can understand the power and significance of having your hair represent who you are.
Yeah, sort of the opposite of what the Iranian women are doing. It's a way to own who you are.
Right. And I think that that's kind of like what hair is. Hair is your personal representation. It's your personal space. Yeah, it grows out of you, but it's your personal space to represent who you are. You know what I mean? And the other thing that was kind of shocking to me is in a lot of these articles I'd read about where African American women were saying how strangers will ask them if they can touch their hair.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I'm just like, oh, can I just touch your hair? And to me, that's such a like invasion of like my own space. You know what I mean? It's for a stranger. If a stranger said to me, "Can I rub your head?" for example, you know what I mean? It would be, I would be insulted. I would be appalled. I would be like, "Who are you? I don't know you. What makes you think you can just come up to a stranger and touch them?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway,
it's breaking that personal space, and if it happens once, you're probably like, okay, this person's strange. But then if it happens consistently, you're like, there is a cultural thing going on here, oppressing me, and or belittling me, which is, you know, again, we can't fully understand it as old white dudes, but we can try. We can try. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hair. Damn.
Hair's
so legit.
I know hair is like.
I mean,
really
we started off. I
powerful.
thought this was going to be hair, kind of a light topic, but it's a very, very intense, deep thing.
Yeah. It's very spiritual, very political, very individual. You know what I mean?
And I know next week you're going. It's all about the taint, and that's going to be totally different, but just as deep.
Yeah.
You know,
talk about symbolic. I mean, that's going to be. We go way back on that one, 35,000 years. So it's funny when I think about my relationship with you, though. Hair plays a lot of my memories are hair, like us having long hair and driving around in your Mustang.
Yes,
the soundtrack of the musical Hair.
The musical Hair, exactly.
You know,
God, I forgot.
Completely
about that.
nerdy, but just getting like really high and listening to Hair. And
I remember driving over 100 miles an hour in that Mustang, sharing a bottle of tequila with you that had a sombrero on it.
Yeah, it's like our little friend there, you know. That car was beautiful. I always remember. Have you ever heard the TLC song "Scrubs"? You know, no. It's like there's a line in it like, "I don't want no scrubs." A scrub is a guy who's hanging out the passenger side of his best friend's ride, trying to holler at me. And I always felt like that in your car because your car was so beautiful. But I was a scrub. I was hanging out on the passenger side of my best friend's ride. You know?
I sold that car for $500 and bought an 8-ball of cocaine with it.
Oh, that's awful.
Every story.
That's awful.
That's a sort of that to me is what getting older is.
Yeah.
Those beautiful things, and it just turns into this. If you live long enough. But you had a beautiful car. Let's not forget your car.
67 Falcon, Ford Falcon.
Oh, that car was fantastic.
Yeah.
God, that thing was heavy. That was a tank, that thing. I felt like we were always filling it up with gas.
Yeah.
That was a great car.
3 on the tree. 3 on the tree.
3 on the tree.
God. So.
Well. There you have it.
So I hope we've learned something about hair today.
Boy, I have. You've taken me on a ride today.
Next time you're at the barbershop or next time you see somebody with hair, just kind of think about all the history.
Well, when I see that pole, I'm just going to think about bloody bandages.
Right.
It's crazy.
Isn't that there's a book, I think the people that make the poles now are Marvy Pole Company or Marvy Barber Supply Company. It's like one of the last barbershop pole makers in the country.
What?
And I think they're in St. Paul, Minnesota. But I read a fascinating book that was put out by them about the history of the barber pole.
Oh my God, you are incredible. Only you would have read a book about the barber pole. That is... We should start a company. We should start a competition.
Oh, you know what was fascinating?
We'll undercut them. We'll use bloody bandages and go back like the original. We sell a stick with bloody bandages on it.
We'll be barbers or surgeons of the short robe or something.
Yes! Oh my God. Nobody take this idea.
All right, John.
Thank you. This is human number 2, John Lehr, signing off.
And this is human number 1. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you down the road on this journey of self-discovery. Thanks.
Thank you.